So you've definitely done this before. Come on, I know you have. Posting a photo, then deleting it. Then reposting another version where the lighting looks slightly better. Your skin looked slightly smoother. And somehow the entire situation looked a little more effortless than real life. Or maybe you've taken 20 photos already, only to end up posting the very first one anyway. Maybe you've wondered, does this look too posed, too filtered, too try-hard, not polished enough? And maybe somewhere underneath all of that is the very human desire to be seen, valued, admired, reassured, or simply reminded that we matter. Maybe your identity sits in your work, your intelligence, your children, your marriage, your beauty, your independence, your achievements, your ability to hold everything together. And maybe, without even realizing it, you've started building monuments to yourself. So in this episode, we're going to talk about something uncomfortable. We're going to talk about pride. Not the obvious kind, not the loud, arrogant kind, but the hidden pride that quietly says, I will control the process. I will force the outcome. I will manage how people see me. I will not submit. I will not wait. I will not let go. And today, we're going to look at Absalom, Saul, and Joab. And even, perhaps I should say especially, we're going to look at ourselves. Because pride in Scripture almost always ends the same way, from pillar to rubble. And honestly, by the time you compare your 20-year-old face to your 52-year-old face, life has usually already started introducing you to some rubble anyway. Oops. There we go. I've officially given my age away now. And if you didn't hear that clearly, please go and give me some grace here and don't go and rewind that. And before you do, let me welcome you into the Jules for Jesus podcast, where we take faith seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. This is a safe space where you can come exactly as you are. No perfection here, no polished, I've arrived spiritually energy. Definitely no guarantees that I personally have mastered anything I'm about to talk about today. This is real life Christianity, my friend, the messy kind. The kind where some days we trust God deeply and other days we accidentally build small emotional support monuments to ourselves and then wonder why we are so exhausted carrying them around. So, no filters here, no pretending, no perfect Christian performance. It's just me, your friend Jules, trying to walk with Jesus in real life, trying to surrender in real life, trying to let go of control one day at a time, and sometimes still learning the same lessons for the 17th time in slightly better lighting. And I'm just really glad that you are here, because today we're going to talk about pridefulness. We're going to talk about identity, control and submission, and what happens when God lovingly dismantles the things we started leaning on more heavily than Him. So recently, I found myself thinking about pride in a very different way, because I think most of us hear the word pride and immediately picture arrogance, someone boastful, someone loud, someone full of themselves, and of course, we say to ourselves, that's not us. But the more I read Scripture, the more I started realizing that pride is far deeper than that. Pride can look like being offended, not forgiving someone, carrying bitterness in your heart, trying to control outcomes, being impatient. I want answers and I want them now. Come on, am I alone here? It can also look like comparison, self-importance, perfectionism, or even refusing to ask for help. And to tell you the truth, that's also me. I'm the kind of person who could literally drive all the way to the mall, forget my wallet, get stuck at the parking exit, and instead of simply asking somebody for help like a normal human being, seriously consider abandoning the car and walking home before admitting that I need assistance. Well, at least there's Uber now. Because pride doesn't always sound like I'm better than everyone. Sometimes pride quietly says, I'll manage myself. I don't need help. I can carry this alone. I should be able to figure this out. And my friend, that kind of pride becomes so exhausting. Pride is often simply this, resisting submission. And one of the clearest examples of this is Absalom. Now, if you know the story of Absalom, you know that he was David's son. He was beautiful, charismatic, and admired. In fact, 2 Samuel 14 says, "In all Israel, there was not a man so highly praised for his handsome appearance as Absalom. From the top of his head to the sole of his foot, there was no blemish in him." Imagine that being written about you in scripture. Not one blemish. That man was basically the Instagram influencer of the Old Testament. And then we read something else that's fascinating. His hair was famous. Scripture tells us that when he cut his hair annually, it weighed 200 shekels by the royal standard. That was about 5 pounds. Now in those times, a heavy growth of hair symbolized strength, masculinity, status and power. And we all know the story that comes next. Most of us have heard it before. But reading it again through the lens of pride gave it a completely different meaning for me. 2 Samuel 18 says, "Now Absalom happened to meet David's men. He was riding his mule, and as the mule went under the thick branches of a large oak, Absalom's hair got caught in the tree. He was left hanging in mid-air, while the mule he was riding kept on going. And suddenly it struck me in a different way. The very thing he was proud of became the thing that trapped him. His pride literally caught him. And maybe that's the warning for all of us, because pride leaves you hanging suspended, not grounded, not stable, not surrendered, just hanging there, between life and destruction, between surrender and self-will, between God's process and your own interference. And the imagery becomes even deeper, because right after this dramatic scene, Scripture inserts what almost feels like a random paragraph. It says, "During his lifetime, Absalom had taken a pillar and erected it in the king's valley as a monument to himself, for he thought, 'I have no son to carry on the memory of my name.' And he named the pillar after himself." Now immediately I thought, wait a minute, because early in 2 Samuel 14 we are told that Absalom did have sons. He had 3 sons and a daughter. So why does he suddenly say, "I have no son to carry on my name"? Perhaps because no son was worthy enough in his mind to carry the greatness of his name. It wasn't really about legacy. It was all about self-glory. And look at the contrast. Absalom builds himself a monument, but eventually ends up in a pit covered with rocks, from pillar to rubble. And the thing is, Absalom didn't only struggle with vanity, he struggled with timing. He wanted the kingdom for himself before it was time. David was still king. But Absalom couldn't wait. He couldn't submit, couldn't trust God's process. And maybe that's where pride becomes dangerous. Because pride doesn't wait for the fruit to ripen in season. Pride says, "I'll force this. I'll take control. I will make this happen myself." But Ecclesiastes 3 reminds us, there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. And by the way, perhaps you are like me, wanting to dance before the blisters from the previous season have even healed yet. Yes, I can literally see my friends shaking their heads thinking, yes, that's the all or nothing Jules we know so well. We want the new season. We want the new joy, the new beginning, while our souls may still be limping from the last battle. And then we wonder why we cannot fully step into what God's doing. Because healing also has a season, my friend. And maybe some of us are exhausting ourselves trying to force things God never asked us to force. Trying to manage outcomes, trying to speed up timelines, trying to secure love, trying to secure validation, trying to secure identity. And all the while God is saying, will you trust me with the process? Absalom saw himself as king, but he wasn't yet established by God. He looked powerful, admired, impressive, but underneath it all, he was just resisting submission. And eventually, that resistance became his downfall. And here, my friend, comes the uncomfortable part, because I think many of us have little Absalom areas where we, very subtly, build monuments to ourselves, Maybe not physical pillars in a valley, but carefully curated identities, social media profiles, achievements, titles, appearances, success stories. And perhaps this is also where we need to pause before we post that photo, before we upload it, before we edit it, before we smooth out those wrinkles, before we adjust the lighting just one more time. Ask yourself honestly, why am I posting this? Am I posting because I want connection? Because I want to share life with people I love? Or is there another motive quietly sitting underneath it? Do I want admiration, validation, attention, approval? Do I want people to think, wow, she looks so amazing. Her life's so perfect. Wow, her husband really loves her. Her children are doing so well. She's so successful. Wow, look at her, she's thriving. And listen, sharing beautiful things isn't wrong. Posting photos isn't wrong. Looking nice is not wrong. But maybe the deeper question is this: what is driving it? Because pride is so sneaky, my friend. Sometimes pride doesn't build a monument in the King's Valley. Sometimes pride quietly opens an editing app. And maybe the question is not, is this sinful? Maybe the question is, what is my true motive? Am I sharing or am I performing? Am I connecting or am I managing perception? Am I surrendering or am I controlling? And my friend, that requires real and honest introspection, because pride often hides inside the need to manage outcomes. And we see this again with Joab, the head of David's army. Now remember, David had given strict instructions that Absalom was not to be harmed. One of Joab's men actually refuses to touch Absalom while he was hanging in the oak tree because he remembers the king's command. But Joab says, I'm not going to wait like this for you. And then he takes 3 javelins and plunges them into Absalom's heart while he's still hanging in the tree. Now, why was Joab so unwilling to wait? Well, earlier in 2 Samuel 14, Absalom had ordered Joab's barley field to be set on fire. Joab had been offended, hurt, angry, and suddenly his offense became greater than his submission to the king. And for me, that's another form of pride, because pride says, my hurt matters more than the obedience. My offense justifies my actions. I will take matters into my own hands. Absalom couldn't wait to become king. Joab couldn't wait for revenge. Both were driven by pride. And maybe some of us are still hanging suspended because we are refusing to let God handle the process, still trying to control outcomes, still trying to force reconciliation, still trying to prove ourselves, to secure admiration, to defend our image. Meanwhile, God is saying, release it. And this theme runs throughout Scripture. In 1 Samuel 15, we read about Saul. Saul has gone to Carmel. There he has set up a monument in his own honor. Again, the same thing, building monuments to self. And Saul's downfall also began with pride and disobedience, because pride always resists surrender. Pride says, I know better. I will do it my way. I cannot submit. I cannot let go. Again and again in the Bible, we find people building monuments to themselves and eventually end up destroyed by the very thing they trusted in. And maybe that's the uncomfortable question for all of us. If the thing you built your identity on disappeared tomorrow, who would you be underneath it? If the title goes, if the beauty fades, if the applause quiets down, if the relationship ends, the achievements stop, the children grow up, the money disappears, if the career changes, would there still be enough of you left to stand? And maybe that's exactly why God sometimes allows shaking, not to destroy us, but to lovingly separate us from the things we quietly started worshipping. Hebrews 12 says, everything that can be shaken will be shaken. Why? So that what cannot be shaken may remain. And maybe some of us are exhausted because we are trying to hold together identities God is gently trying to dismantle. Because if your identity rests entirely on being admired, being needed, being successful, beautiful, intelligent, being the strong one, life eventually touches those things. And then what? And this is where David becomes such a powerful contrast. Because David had every reason to be offended by Absalom, betrayed, rejected, humiliated. And yet David still says, do not lay a hand on the young man Absalom. David reflects humility. Humility doesn't always rush toward revenge. Humility submits even while wounded. And for me, this is also where we need to hear Zechariah 2. Be still before the Lord, all mankind, because he has raised himself from his holy dwelling. Be still. Not when you finally feel peaceful. Not when finally everything makes sense. Not when the outcome looks guaranteed. Just be still. And honestly, that's hard. Because all of us want to interfere with the process. All of us want to help God along a little. All of us want to secure outcomes and want reassurance. But maybe surrender looks like this: letting God carry the process instead of trying to manage it yourself. And maybe you feel suspended right now, my friend, like Absalom hanging in mid-air. Maybe this is not the moment to panic. Maybe this is the moment for you to submit. Because God's process may feel slower, but it leads to life. Pride rushes. Pride forces. Pride interferes. Faith waits. Faith trusts. Faith surrenders. So my friend, this week I want you to do something for me. I want you to pause before the next thing you post, before the next argument, before the next attempt to control an outcome, before asking AI to analyze and predict the outcome of something so that you can know whether to wait patiently or just put the hope behind you and move on. Before the next moment where you feel desperate to prove yourself, go and ask yourself, what is driving me right now? Fear, pride, control, validation, offense, impatience, or trust? And maybe don't even try to fix everything immediately. Just bring it honestly before God, because awareness is often where surrender begins. Oh, and by the way, if you see me posting a photo, then quietly replacing it 3 minutes later with a version that somehow has better lighting, better angles, and what appears to be this miraculous overnight skincare breakthrough, please just gently remind me of this episode. Jules, from pillar to rubble, my friend, leave the process alone. Because apparently, even after recording an entire episode on pride and surrender, some of us are still one editing app away from spiritual character development. This is Jules, still figuring things out, still surrendering, still learning, and still coming before Jesus like the rest of us. A little messy, a little humbled, and completely unfiltered. Can't wait to chat again soon.